This is Monty in the Morning, the show Phoenix Magazine readers voted #1 talk radio show in Arizona.
#1 during your morning commute.
#1 whenever news breaks during your day.
And #1 whenever and wherever you want to talk sports.
Now it's time for Monty in the Morning.
Hey, yo, man, it is the Monty Show, live on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Anywhere you want to find our show. Again, another question about where to find our podcast yesterday. Anywhere you want it. Anywhere you want it. Just open up Google, search The Monty Show, M-O-N-T-Y, The Monty Show, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, iHeart, you name it, we're there. Radio.com, by the way, as well. Just search The Monty Show, M-O-N-T-Y, The Monty Show. Please subscribe on our YouTube channel, The Monty Show on YouTube. Subscribing really helps us grow the channel. Frankly, the channel is doing very well. We've got a lot of people coming on board. Really appreciate you. Hit subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Really appreciate that very much. Interesting show today, Jake. We probably should get right to work because I want to start with this Utah Utes situation. And I know that this is a very sensitive subject. Especially here in the state of Utah. But if you don't know the story, let me tell you. Guy Holliday, the wide receiver coach, formerly now of Utah, is one of the most respected men in this state when it comes to football. Coming from BYU to Utah, he clearly has a recruiting base, but that recruiting base has not really put a lot of fruit off the tree. And yesterday it was shocking, I would say, to hear the news that Utah had fired Guy Holliday. What was more shocking was that Guy Holliday's son let go of an incredible tweet saying that Guy Holliday was fired because he was black and it was only about race. And I don't believe that. Now, I'm no Utah Ute insider. I've been around the program long enough to know that Kyle Whittingham doesn't do business like that. If you fit into their system, if you recruit well, if you coach well, you're going to be there. There's no question about that. The issue, I think, on the surface is that Utah has not produced prolific wide receivers consistently. They've not been able to recruit at the top of the wide receiver chain in the Pac-12. But, Jake, I don't think that that's necessarily Guy Holliday's fault. But the one thing I am sure of is that I do not believe that Guy Holliday was fired because he's black.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty aggressive tweet, no doubt about it. I think it's we talk about this all the time in sports. You know, when like when it's the NFL talking about the Rooney Rule or like any other situation you want to look at. You know, when the race situation comes to the forefront. That's a very, very slippery slope. And we were just talking about the other day with Dennis Lindsey and the Utah Jazz and Elijah Millsap, And so, when it comes up, I think it's a really, really slippery slope. I think that being that it is his son, I think there's obviously some bias there. And, I haven't spent the time around the program that you have, but I would be surprised if Kyle Whittingham was operating the program like that. I don't think he is. And I think, the performance side of this whole conversation, not having, prolific wide receivers or notable wide receivers that are really game changing. Yeah, it's not all on Guy Holliday. I think there are other things at play in the program which we'll get to. But I think overall the program is not centered around high octane offense, right? Like the program is built around this idea of run first versus pass first, and then when you compare what they've done on the big stage, in terms of the national championship, it kind of begs a question. Like, if you put yourself in the shoes of a wide receiver recruit and you're saying, okay, I know I have the potential to get to the league or to get to, the NFL, where should I go? Where should I go if I'm an NFL wide receiver recruit, a potential talent? Should I go to Utah? Or maybe should I go somewhere else? Should I go to Oregon all those years ago when they had that powerhouse? Should I go to Oregon, when they had Herbert? Maybe if I'm good enough, could I go to the SEC or the ACC? These are the things that I think are frustrating to Utah fans. And I think that's majorly what's at play for them not getting wide receivers.
Well, and I think the other thing that you absolutely have to talk about is Utah's not where you go as a wide receiver or a quarterback if you want to get to the NFL. It's not. And I know that that's not the most popular take ever. I know that here in the state of Utah, there's a lot of pride when it comes to football. But if you look at the numbers, who are the best Utah Utes in the NFL? Is it Devontae Booker? Probably not. But is it any number of cornerbacks? Is it any number of defensive linemen? Is it anybody that ever came through the Utah program on defense? It is. Absolutely it is. It is not ever, in my opinion, under Kyle Whittingham, going to be an offensive first program. And I think you simply go back, and if you look at the numbers, we spent a lot of time this morning looking at the last 10 years of Utah offense, and you start to understand that Tyler Huntley attempted as many passes per year as the top quarterbacks in the country completed. And I'll say that again, that Tyler Huntley, in the last 3 years, attempted as many passes as guys like Justin Herbert completed. That tells you that this Utah offense, and this is not rocket science, this Utah offense is ground and pound. It legit has always been under Kyle Whittingham. I mean, if you go back to Alex Smith and Brian Johnson, that's how far I think you have to go back to find a quarterback that was throw first, to find an offense that was really centered around a quarterback, right? And consequently, Alex Smith goes at the top of the draft, right? But since then, the quarterback recruiting has slid because Kyle Whittingham defines his program and his success and failure on the defensive side of the football. Don't get me wrong, he's had great success doing that. But at some point, I think you have to truth tell when you're firing a guy like Guy Holliday, the obvious implication is, hey, the wide receivers are not good enough and you didn't recruit well enough, so we're going to go in a different direction. Mm-hmm. Well, you've turned over wide receiver coaches at Utah.
Right.
You have turned over quarterbacks at Utah. You have turned over offensive coordinators at Utah. You have turned over a lot on the offensive side of the football. But what do we know on the defensive side of the football? It's been pretty consistent, mainly because Kyle Whittingham's the man.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you look at Kalani was there for an extended period of time. Now, here's where the elephant in the room comes into the conversation. Morgan Scalley's still the defensive coordinator. And when you look at Morgan and you look at the scandal, and this is what Guy Holliday's son referenced, you have a guy, Morgan Scalley, who was suspended, who used the N-word on a recruit, paid the price for that. But what did you also have? You had a ton of alumni from Utah come out publicly on Twitter defending Morgan Scalley. Mm-hmm. Defending his character, standing up for who he was as a man. I just don't think there's a reason to compare Guy Holliday to Morgan Scalley. If you are looking to do that, I think you're looking to say, well, Morgan Scalley's white, he stayed. Guy Holliday is, brown-skinned, so he's out. Uh-huh. And I just think it's a waste of time.
Yeah, do you think that if, do you think that in situations, like I would point to, a Kyle Larson situation in NASCAR or, Morgan Scalley and what he did, do you think when people use racial slurs and they pay the price, they're suspended, they don't get paid, they kind of go through that disciplinary process, do you think that should put us in a place where we're able to kind of forgive that, we're able to just sort of like let that go?
But what does forgive mean?
And not hold it against them?
I mean, I think you have to move on. Will you ever forget it?
No, I don't. It's impossible to forget something like that. But his son. Like my point is Guy Holliday's son is still is playing the race card here and essentially insinuating, hey, this guy, used that word on a recruit, and there's the race dynamic in this conversation is massive. So I'm just saying. Morgan Scalley used that word. He paid the price. He was disciplined. He went through the process, yet it's still being held against him. And I guess that is the price you pay when you do something as dumb as that. When you do something like that, nobody will ever forget, which is why I brought up Kyle Larson in NASCAR, because Kyle Larson used the N-word, And he was suspended for a year, and now he's back racing again. And every time we see him in the 5 car, what do we say? Oh, hey, that's Kyle Larson. That's that guy.
I will never forget what Kyle Larson said. Right? And again, not to be redundant, Kyle Larson was on an e-racing simulator and they have the E-League, essentially, e-racing league in the off-season for NASCAR. And Kyle Larson dropped an N-bomb on a guy that he was racing with. And he lost it all. Chip Ganassi immediately fired him. And he should have. I don't think there's any question. But here's the problem and why this is different. NASCAR has a race problem. There's no doubt about that. And I don't mean on the track. I mean black versus white. There's a race problem in NASCAR. It is good old boys that love the Confederate flag and will just stand there and chant "Stop the Steal" all day long. That's who NASCAR is, right? If you look at the ownership, where's the black owner in NASCAR? Well, now it is Michael Jordan and Bubba Wallace. And that's it. Like there is not a plethora of opportunity for young black men or young black women to get into NASCAR. And frankly, in my lifetime, I'm 48. I don't think in the next 50 years, I don't think you're going to see a plethora or a dearth of black men and women sitting behind the wheel in NASCAR. Yeah. I just don't. Now, in football, I think we have, guess what, a race problem. I think we need more black ownership. I think the only way that you're going to get more representation for black and brown skin, Latino, Polynesian, the only way you're going to get a more diverse culture in the front office and on the sideline is to have more diversity in ownership in the NFL. I just don't think it's going to happen. The white guy club that is NFL ownership is very difficult to breach. Yeah. And I think that's why you don't see many teams. It's what's so disappointing about Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right. He's a minority, right? But he hired Urban Meyer. Mm-hmm. And that's why many people felt like that was a fixed process, that there was no chance a black man or a brown-skinned man was ever going to get a job in Jacksonville. Yeah. Or anywhere else in the NFL for that matter, right? Yeah. And you look at what's going on in Tampa, look at Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the most dominant defense last year. Todd Bowles, I don't think he had any chance. Look at Eric Bieniemy. Yeah, that's the name. The offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, the best offense in the NFL probably for the last 3 years, easy. Does Eric Bieniemy even get a job offer? He does not. No. And he was scratching just to get an interview. And so I just think there's a race problem. Unless you're the Utah Utes and you're firing Guy Holliday, because I don't think they fired him because he's black. Mm-hmm. I don't. So by the way, Guy Holliday is going to be on 1280 The Zone this morning on DJ and PK. I think it's a must-listen interview. Yeah. And I'm curious to see what he says.
Yeah, I think there's probably a conversation that's going to be had about the fact that, and this is your point, that they haven't had a quarterback, worth a damn in 10 years, So how are you supposed to go out and recruit great wide receiver talent into a program that is all about handing it off to guys in the past like a Zach Moss or like any of the dominant running backs that they've had over the years? How are you going to go out and say, hey, come to Utah, A, we're in the Pac-12, so you're never going to be on TV. B, we are a run-first program, but hey, you're a great wide receiver, and I'll develop you. That's just not a good product, if you will, to be selling, a good situation. Guys want to go somewhere where there's a top-end quarterback who's got a cannon, who can really get it down the field. They want to be on SportsCenter top 10. They want to get to the postseason. They want to do all those things. And so, in terms of that interview this morning, I wouldn't be surprised if Guy Holliday talked about the fact that it was a real struggle to recruit wide receivers, mainly because they didn't have any quarterback talent, mainly because the program just isn't really set up to cater to that. It's set up now. If you want to recruit running backs, okay, that's a different story. Yeah. Now you can go out and get backs. Now you can go out and have a good time. But I just think that Guy Holliday was not set up for success there.
No, and I think that you have to recognize. Look at the quarterbacks. And we were doing this, so let's do it again. This is what, since 2017, Tyler Huntley, Troy Williams are your main quarterbacks there. Okay, you're attempting 312 passes on the entire season.
It's ridiculous.
312 passes. Justin Herbert, I believe in that same year, completed 299.
Yeah.
You attempted 317. The best quarterback in the conference completed 299.
Yeah, and so what are you really looking at in your program? You're saying, okay, well, where did Justin Herbert go? He went to Oregon, and when he was with the Ducks, they were a dominant team. And it's funny how that works because now they're not a dominant team, right? Nobody's expecting them to go out and do anything special.
You throw for 213 yards a game in 2018, right? What that's saying to any wide receiver recruit is they're going to turn around and hand the football off.
Yes,
right.
And I'm going to have to block a ton.
You look at 2019, right? You complete 227 yards a game. You attempt 23 passes a game, right? And to me, when you're running for as many yards as you are passing for, you're not going to be able to recruit wide receiver talent.
Yeah.
Right? And you have a guy in Zach Moss. Where's Zach Moss right now? Well, he plays for the Buffalo Bills. He's in the NFL.
Hell of a back.
By the way, can anybody tell me who was the leading wide receiver on that team? Well, Brant Kuthi, who is a tight end, is your leading wide receiver on that team.
Why would any wide receiver want to come to the program?
That's a problem, right? So you run the ball a lot and you throw the ball at a tight end a lot. Why do you do that? Because you're a ground and pound football team. Mm-hmm. So is Guy Holliday doing his job? I don't know. Because I think he's recruiting with one hand behind his back.
Yeah.
And listen, again, before you freak out and say, oh, you're drinking the blue Kool-Aid, the TDS. Before you freak out about anything else, tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm wrong, because frankly, I just don't believe that you're going to be able to win like that.
I agree completely. And by the way, in terms of recruiting, when you're a ground and pound team, you don't get the flashy highlights, so your recruiting tape doesn't look real good either.
I would agree with that. You want to play in the NFL? Oh, and you're a corner? Go to Utah. You want to play in the NFL and you're a wide receiver? Okay, well, let's go to Arizona State. Let's go to USC. Let's go to Oregon.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, maybe you should try to go play in the Big Ten or the SEC. Right? Because you're not going to pick... It has become an epidemic in the Pac-12 that there is lightweight talent in this conference.
Yeah, listen, look at how many wide receivers Alabama puts out every year. That's just what they do. So, now I got to sneeze. It's coming.
Jake.
It's coming.
Come on, man.
Now it went away. Okay,
you fought it off.
You fought it off. You know that feeling when it sneaks up on you and then it runs off? Yeah, that's what just happened to me. Anyway, point is that I think that this whole situation is... it really is. I'm not going to say it's blown out of proportion or anything, but I just think that, saying that, he got fired because of race relations is a little out there.
Listen, again, the question that was being asked last night, did the Utah Utes fire Guy Holliday because of race? No. Was it because of his recruiting? Probably. Right? That, to me, that's...
Is it wrong that it always goes there, though?
I think it's easy.
Because I feel like it always goes there.
I think it's easy.
Yeah.
I think it's lazy.
Yeah.
Is what I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it fascinating that the first thing we think about is, race wars.
Yeah.
I saw more than one tweet about, that nothing having to do with football, everything having to do with race.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Guy Holliday should have been fired. I understand why they fired him. And I understand why he wasn't able to recruit there. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. You're this close to winning. And the way I'll leave this is Utah's never going to be a quarterback factory. They're never, that's not as long as Kyle Whittingham's the head coach. Mm-hmm. He's a fantastic head coach. I do not think he should be fired. Don't even go there. But as long as he's your head coach, you're not going to be a quarterback factory. It just is what it is. You're going to be a run, tight end, offensive line, defensive line program.
Cold weather team.
Is what it is. All right, make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And already the comments are fast and furious. We get it. We absolutely get it. Let's talk Utah Jazz basketball.
Okay.
Let's talk NBA basketball.
Let's piss some more people off.
I mean, it is what it be, right? How do I say this kindly? I fucking told you, man.
Twitter's been going crazy.
So we had an epic Twitter week with the Jazz. I told you yesterday on this show, and we even cut the conversation. It's in the highlight playlist on our YouTube channel, The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show, where we warned you about the New Orleans Pelicans. And I think it's a trend now that's emerging. The Jazz struggle against teams that play a smaller lineup with wings who attack the basket. That is kryptonite for the Utah Jazz.
Here's the game plan.
Attack Bojan Bogdanovic.
Mm-hmm.
Attack. Well, and the thing that I thought was so interesting, again, is they were attacking Royce O'Neal with success.
Mm-hmm.
Zion was attacking the paint with success early in the game.
Right.
If you're the Jazz, do you have a problem, A? And B, would you change anything you're doing?
Well, I think that, in the postseason, when you get into a 7-game series, yeah, I mean, you might consider adapting the way you play to whoever you're playing. But I think on the regular here, for the rest of the regular season, no, I probably wouldn't change a lot. I think, last night, I'm just not surprised at the result. It's not surprising even a little bit, which is why we're able to say we told you so. It's what they've struggled with the whole year. They don't struggle a lot, but this is the one thing that they do struggle with. And as far as Royce O'Neal is concerned, when you're playing defense on a basketball court, you can pretty much handle any guy outside of the guy who outweighs you by 100 pounds, because that's what it is with Zion Williamson. He is a mover of people. That's what he does in basketball. So for Royce, I mean, I thought he did everything that he could do against Zion. Zion's just stronger. Zion is just a bulldozer of a basketball player. So there's not much that Royce is going to be able to do. But I thought that what I was more disappointed in overall was that, and maybe this is a credit to Zion, but I was really disappointed with the containment of Zion Williamson by the Jazz defense as the game wore on. There were many times where I'm like, man, Rudy's got all this length that he could be using to rebound, yet he's having to sit here and pick fights with Zion over rebounds because Zion can jump out of the gym, And so I think that the issue comes in when teams understand that Rudy Gobert is not fast enough to guard his guy and get back, right? He doesn't have that quickness to get back all the way. And when you've got a guy like Zion on your team, or Julius Randle, let's say, or any guy like that, they are going to be able to wreak havoc on the block because you're going to move Gobert out of the paint, you're going to put him on a smaller guy, and that's that. And that's what we've seen all year long. Now, we've only seen it a couple times because there aren't very many teams who can do it. But the teams that have done it have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, and I think, the thing that really comes to mind is that we find situations now on an almost nightly basis where Rudy Gobert is just kind of chilling in the paint. And last night, I think we saw why Oklahoma City was so willing to let go of Steven Adams.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one, he doesn't catch the basketball very well right now for whatever reason. And two, he doesn't play as big as his size, right? But what did we also see? That when Zion goes into the paint, it doesn't matter what size you are, he's going to be effective. When Brandon Ingram attacks Rudy Gobert in the paint, in the first, in the third, and in the fourth quarter, B.I.'s getting to the basket and scoring layups, right? When you have a situation where, Brandon Ingram is backing down Royce O'Neal and just does a little pirouette, and George Niang is standing there watching for whatever reason, not doubling.
Yeah.
B.I.'s going to score that little fadeaway jumper every single time.
Yep.
And I think some of this is the Jazz feel like they've been on the road for a year, number one. Number two, I think you're one game away now from the All-Star break, so you're looking ahead. I think there were times, especially, in that second quarter where their legs felt heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the number one most concerning part of what we saw last night is there are just times, and usually it's early in games, and Ben Anderson at KSL, I thought, wrote a great piece on this as well, where the Jazz just don't fire. They don't They come out a little slow.
Yep.
And they're digging themselves into these double-digit holes, and it takes a ton of energy to get out of those holes, right? But what we're seeing is I don't see the Jazz playing high-energy attacking basketball for 4 quarters.
Right.
And we're seeing a lot more of that slowdown. We're seeing a lot more of that methodical plotting, right? And when that happens, what emerges for me is Mike Conley's indispensable. Mm-hmm. When you're not shooting a ton of threes and you're playing slower basketball, Mike Conley becomes this guy that you cannot live without.
Yeah, he's able to probe a lot, and I think he gets you a lot of high percentage looks when this team is off and they're playing slow, like you were saying. Mike Conley a lot of times will either just play a simple pick and roll with somebody, and then that'll lead to a kick out, which leads to a three. Or he'll find a nice little floater game. His floater game is really nice right now, and I think that Mike Conley, I wish that he stayed healthier. I wish he was a more durable player. But at the end of the day, as long as he's there in the postseason, that's what matters. As long as he is there for that first series, that's what I care about.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about can you stay healthy, I don't know how many guys we have to have this conversation with.
There's so many.
I mean, look at Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn last night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that alley-oop to DeAndre Jordan with the Rondo behind the back, fake into the alley-oop to DeAndre Jordan is spectacular. But the problem is he doesn't play every night. Oh, my shoulder hurts. Oh, my taint hurts. Oh, my hurts. Right? Like, I mean, that's what Kyrie Irving has become, a guy, much like Mike Conley, who you can't count on for even 70 games a year.
Yeah.
Right? You would ideally love a guy to play an entire slate of games. Mm-hmm. Mike Conley's not that guy. He's never been. B, he's never going to be at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like you're sitting here counting on Mike Conley. But the question is, what do you need to handicap that? And what you need is better play out of the 2s and 3s. Because when Conley's not in the game, you're going to rely on Donovan Mitchell to bring the ball up, which, again, I will just say, what the hell were you thinking not giving the ball to Donovan Mitchell in the endgame situation when you clearly needed a 3? Mm-hmm. Like, you heave up a prayer that was never going in.
Yep.
And
I'm
particular befuddled by that.
Dude, that situation shows they're mentally tired. That shows that they are just not locked in, and I get it. It's not. I'm not sitting here saying that they're slacking. I'm saying that they've worked really hard in the first half. You've put together this awesome record in the first half, so it's not surprising to get tired before the All-Star break. That doesn't surprise me. But what I am saying, and I've alluded to this a few times when we talk Jazz every single day on this show, that at some point, when you're winning as many games as they're winning, you will get tired. At some point, you have to throttle down a little bit. At some point, you have to take it a little bit easy. And that's what I'm concerned about.
But what are we seeing? We're seeing the Jazz on a night-to-night basis push down that three-point make percentage. Mm-hmm. Right? Last night, they're under 40% for the game. Right? And you look at guys like Jordan Clarkson, who so heavily rely on a very... his shot difficulty is hot, through the roof. Yeah. He takes fading, floating threes. He makes them. He's been making them. But when you're 3 of 7 last night, you're going to struggle at times.
Yeah.
And granted, 3 of 7 in the NBA is not that bad, right? But it's not what you've been.
Listen, I think when you put up 40 off the bench, people expect more of that from you. They expect at least 25 to 30. Yes. So when you give them 15, that's not. That's just not going to get it done. And so here's the thing. I think the Jazz, they're very much a team that relies too heavily on this or that. So, like, Jordan Clarkson, they rely on him to come off the bench and light it up every single night. So when he doesn't light it up, when you don't get that production, your risk of losing that game goes way up.
Well, but what happens when last night he scores 20 and they lose? Mm-hmm. Well, what happens? Well, you get 31 out of Bogdanovich, right? You get 22 out of Rudy, and by the way, I would like it to be said that I had to give you CPR last night and revive you, which, by the way, if you could brush your teeth, that would be great. But anyway, the point is, I had to give you CPR and revive you because Rudy hit a top-of-the-key jumper last night.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Well, I almost
fell over. It was straight up. Like, you guys remember that scene in Pulp Fiction where they take the needle to the girl's chest? That's what it was last night. I fell over, and I was like, damn, did that just happen?
It did happen.
Did I just see what I thought I would never see? Rudy Gobert, free throw line jumper off the pick and roll.
I think you did see what we thought you would never see, but you saw it and stuff. I think it's one of those things where he's evolving. He's not going to do that consistently. Yeah. And I think that's an issue. But my point is, Rudy gives you these huge numbers, right, where he gives you 22 and 9, and somehow you get massively out-rebounded 53-39.
Zion Williamson.
Because, well, I look at some of their rebound numbers. Steven Adams gives you 5 points and 11 boards. Zion gives you 26 and 10. But it's not those guys that beat you, right? If you're the Jazz, Rudy's got to be double figures in rebounds. He was not, right?
How many rebounds did he have?
9.
Wow.
9 rebounds. But the issue is he only had 2 offensive boards.
Pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Right? But why did Rudy Gobert only have 2 offensive rebounds? Because they missed a lot of threes, more than they usually do. They were getting to the basket at a nice little clip, but the Jazz just were not playing fast, furious basketball. They were not playing their typical style of basketball, and I think it's because they had their hands full defensively, and it really limits their ability to play with high energy when you have wings like Brandon Ingram. Lonzo Ball last night dominated this game.
And he came into that game knowing he needed to push the pace. You could clearly see that there was an understanding on his part that this Jazz team had been on the road for a while, and there was going to be a lot of opportunities to push the ball up the floor before they could get set and get some easy buckets, because he did that a lot.
If he's going to go 3 of 5 from 3 and 9 of 16 from the floor, there's a lot of games that they're going to win. And I look at his numbers, 23 points, 8 dimes, 7 boards. He dominated.
Give him credit, man. He's improved his shot form. I'm not saying he's an elite.
Dramatically.
I'm not saying he's an elite 3-point shooter, but what I am saying is he's good enough to make it now when he needs to make it. And that's what really matters in the league. You're not asking Lonzo to be, an elite shooter. You're not asking him
not at all.
To be Bogey or, any of these guys that knock it down at a 40% clip. But what you are saying is, hey, when you're the guy that's left wide open in the corner, when you're the guy that's on the wing that the defense is sagged off of, we really need you to make that shot in that specific situation. Yes. And he's making it now.
Yeah. Look, I think that there's no doubt that superstars make your franchise. But I'm telling you, the role players win you championships. And I will just point again to Mike and the Mechanics, the Bobby Hansons, the John Paxsons, the Horace Grants. Won you championship.
Scotty Miller.
Right? I mean, Scotty Miller wins Tampa Bay a Super Bowl. Right? You look at the Lakers last year. Oh, it's LeBron and AD. They don't win a championship without Cantavius. Those threes he hit, those little defensive plays he made, that's why they won a championship. At the end of the day, they don't win just because of AD and LeBron.
Yep.
Now, without AD, are we seeing a championship caliber team? No. But you can't have a soup without meat, right? But I'm telling you, the vegetables in the broth also make that soup, right? And I mean, the meat of the Utah Jazz is Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. There's no question about that. I will again tell you, the role players on this team are not good enough. And Bojan Bogdanovic is getting exposed defensively by wings who attack him. And you look at Royce O'Neal, nights they lose, Royce O'Neal is very quiet.
Yeah, well, and I think it's unfair to expect Royce O'Neal to have a big offensive game when he's, getting thrashed by Zion on the defensive end, because you're never – there are very few players in this league, and really I don't know that I could really name one off the top of my head who is strong enough at that size to guard Zion Williamson. That's really his advantage. And so that's why I say, coming into this game, that's why we were so comfortable saying the Jazz, there's a good shot the Jazz are going to lose this game.
Yeah.
Because Zion is so strong that he's able to overpower Royce O'Neal. So you don't get the luxury of having Royce O'Neal shutting down the best scorer on the other team, and then you can go down and make all your threes. That's not happening last night. That's not, and I'm telling you, if you're a Jazz fan, you should be concerned about what the Jazz are putting on tape right now, because in the postseason, these kind of games are what other teams will model their game after to beat the Jazz.
And I'm not even talking about the Nuggets with Jokic having another huge game last night. I'm not even talking about, the Lakers. I'm not talking about the Clippers.
Yeah.
These are early round matchups that will wear you out. And I know that it seems simplistic. You're the best team in the NBA. Tony Jones of The Athletic, unbelievable point. You're the best team in the NBA. Do you really think the Pelicans are going to give you 80%?
No.
No, they're going to give you 100% of 100%.
And that's why I say some of this is the Jazz being tired. Like, you got it. Like, that definitely is playing a factor because, the first 10 games of the year, you're not getting everybody's best, right? Because you're not established yet. But once you're the first team to 20 wins, and what were they at one point? Like, I think they were like 20-4 at one point or something ridiculous like that. Like, once you're at that point, you're going to get everybody's best. And teams want to be able to say, hey, yeah, we beat the Jazz. We did.
Well, they're going to go to the break with the best record in the NBA. I mean, that's not a question. But I look at some of the games last night. Philly putting up 130 points. By the way, who do the Jazz have tomorrow? Philly.
Boy, better play.
That is a nightmare matchup. Because if you look at the numbers that Philly put up last night, you got 24 from Embiid, you got 18 from Ben Simmons. And the Jazz don't have a lot of ways to limit either one of those. We saw Ben Simmons come in and just attack the basket when they played here.
Yeah, 18 for Ben is even a light night for him. He's usually a 25 to 30 guy just simply by running in transition and getting it going that way. So, listen, my biggest thing here, and I'm serious, watch this game and keep this in mind. Watch the dynamic of Rudy Gobert versus Joel Embiid and tell me who's winning that matchup, because I'm telling you that Joel Embiid should win that matchup all day.
Well, and the other question is, Quinn Snyder's made a habit of taking Rudy and Bogdanovich out of the game about 5-6 minutes into it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can do that against the Sixers. You look at the way that Korkmaz has shot the ball for them. You look at the way that Embiid is playing and what he means to that team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can sit those two guys. Really, if you look at the bench scoring for the Sixers, I mean they have a little bit of depth, but when you can push Scott out to the 4 instead of playing him at the 5 when Embiid is hurt, I mean that's a much different team.
I would agree.
So
I'm sitting here looking at we got SportsCenter on in the background, the Zion highlights are on. The other thing I'll say about him really quick is his ability to get up after being blocked is unreal. Like Rudy straight up blocked him early in the game.
Yes.
And then Zion came back and just fed it to him like the rest of the game.
But why are the rotations, in watching these highlights, this is the other point I wanted to make, why are the rotations to double Zion so slow?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that's so fascinating about the league. While Zion is strong and he's awesome, that's all he does. He's not a jump shooter. He's not a 3-point guy. Like he is, it's very clear what he does. You want to talk about ground and pound? That's the epitome of Zion Williamson.
But look at Giannis. Giannis is the exact same thing, and who's stopping him?
Yeah.
I mean, those two guys are elite attacking the basket, and I thought that over-the-back foul on Rudy late in the game shows you some development out of Zion Williamson.
The price you pay for not making a priority to box him out. That's the price you pay. Because Zion's going to get to his spot if you don't take care of business.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, a couple other things out of the league last night. That Brooklyn performance, one, San Antonio is a dirty-ass team. I do not want to play them. They are hard to play against. They're on the floor, even though I'm not a big proponent of falling down and jumping on the floor. Asked Doug McDermott last night who got his tooth knocked out because he decided to lay on the ground. But I look at San Antonio. San Antonio gave Brooklyn every ounce of everything they had.
Yes.
And San Antonio damn near won that game.
Yeah.
I look at Dallas right now. I stay the hell away from Dallas. I want nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing to do with Dallas.
I don't know what happened to them early in the year, but they've started to figure it out. So I don't know if they've just had a down, slow start to the season. First 20 were rough for them. But they've started to figure it out a little bit, so we'll see if they can keep that going.
The other trend that you have to watch that came out of the NBA last night is how many teams are scoring 130 points a night right now. Well, the Pelicans on the Jazz, who are one of the best defensive teams in the NBA.
I'm just saying,
So the Pelicans, the Dallas Mavericks put up 130 on Orlando.
Yep.
Philly put up 130 on Indiana. Brooklyn put up 124 on San Antonio. Portland put up 123 on Charlotte, and LaMelo had another incredible game. Right? Like you're starting to see that so many teams are just not defending.
Yeah.
Because they want to try and get into a shootout.
Yeah.
And there aren't a whole lot of teams.
That's what this league is about.
But I'm telling you, there's not a whole lot of teams that can play with Brooklyn on that level. There's not a whole lot of teams that can play with the Jazz on that level.
Listen, here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Brooklyn is playing with half to 3/4 of their full roster right now. Like I know I'm the KD guy in the show, but I'm just telling you, you put KD into what they're already doing and the matchups you can create with that and the situations you can create with that, they're going to run people over in the postseason. That's going to happen. And so, that's why I think that everybody favors them to get to the finals, because this is a shootout kind of league, and they are the ultimate shootout team. By the way, it should be said, Harden's playing better defense. When Durant's on the floor, he plays good defense.
Yeah.
DeAndre Jordan is sometimes. So, they're capable of playing some defense, too.
I'm telling you again, if they don't win a championship, it'll be because Jared Allen's in Cleveland and not in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I like DeAndre Jordan. He is a really limited contributor.
Yeah.
Really limited. And in the NBA Finals, he's not going to have a place in a matchup against the West.
Yeah. I think it depends who you're playing, man.
Rudy Gobert Rudy Gobert against or DeAndre Jordan.
I think you have to go with Rudy because of defense. But
all day.
But I'm telling you, it's not as clear cut as that when you're actually on the floor, because DeAndre Jordan is a really good pick and roll player. He understands spacing. And he understands how to DeAndre Jordan is. I'm not worried about DeAndre putting up 25 and 15. What I'm worried about is DeAndre Jordan's ability to set really good screens that free up Kyrie and put Rudy Gobert in pick and roll matchups against Kyrie Irving. That's what I'm worried about,
Well, and they're not going to need Claxton to perform. They're not going to Brooklyn's not going to need Claxton when KD's healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have two of those three in Brooklyn healthy, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be a load. I mean, are the Jazz, and I think they are. I think the Jazz are the best team in the NBA. Are you still on that, or where are you at?
I mean, right now they're the best team in the NBA. They're playing a great brand of basketball. They're one of the few teams in the league who I can honestly say has a pretty they've got elite chemistry, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I would agree.
They play great team basketball, but again, just a word of caution as we go into the second half and go into the postseason. Don't be surprised if we see a 5 to 7 game slide out of the Jazz at some point before the season's over. That doesn't mean the world is ending. That just happens to teams. And then when they get to the postseason, that's what I'm really concerned about. The more I've thought about this, the whole idea that this team lives and dies on threes really scares me. Just because of what we saw out of the Rockets several years ago, and just because of the matchups, they don't get the advantage of being able to constantly drive the paint or constantly get those high percentage looks, because Rudy's not a back-to-basket guy. Rudy is either a pick-and-roll guy or they're shooting threes. So that just concerns me a lot. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think last night was a very telling night in the NBA. And, by the way, I look at real quick before we get to J.J. Watt winning multiple Super Bowls. J.J. Watt winning multiple Super Bowls in the desert. I look at what we have tonight. Lakers and Suns.
So excited.
My guy.
Yeah.
Dev's playing his arrow. Wet like book.
Dude.
Come on. The other night was incredible. That's in L.A. I think there's a pretty critical matchup. Denver-Milwaukee is a
good one.
Big game.
Yep.
That is one of those games where
Jokic will have to do work in that game.
Yeah, and Giannis is not going to be allowed to dunk 20 times, and if he does, Milwaukee's going to blow them out.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big game. I even look at the Clippers in Boston.
Clippers will win that game, but that'll be a fun one.
Clippers better win that game.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people around this league right now questioning that team.
Well, they're a soft team. There's no doubt about it. They're not. I don't view the Clippers as a no doubt about a championship contender. They need to prove that they can beat gritty teams because they struggle with it.
Well, and by the way, Atlanta fired their head coach. They're 14-20.
I agree with it.
And now they're going to Miami, who all of a sudden, out of nowhere, is 500.
Mm-hmm.
And as the Jazz found out, Miami is no pleasure cruise.
No, Miami's a team that's well coached, that has really struggled to get off and get going this year. And people, again, just like last year when they went to the finals, people are writing them off too early, man. I'm telling you, that team will come back around.
Oh, by the way, My New York Knicks are in.
Your New York Knicks. Okay, Barry, chill out.
The Knicks are in San Antonio tonight. A lot of NBA to watch.
Yep.
A lot.
Prime time.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thumbs up. Really appreciate you watching the show. Really helps us when you subscribe and hit the thumbs up. If you don't know how to find us on YouTube, just search Google, The Monty Show. Monty, The Monty Show. Everything you want out of us comes up right there in that Google search. Monty, The Monty Show. JJ Watt!
Do you even live?
Flew into Phoenix yesterday, put on a Cardinal shirt, lifted weights, and shocked the world with a social media post. Why is this shocking? One, I think we knew as soon as DeAndre Hopkins started lobbying him, there was a real good chance he was coming. Mm-hmm. Two, he, I think, knows that he will do well in the NFC West.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of offensive lines that are lacking in the West.
Right.
And three, does he make the Arizona Cardinals a Super Bowl contender?
I don't think he takes them to Super Bowl contender status. I do think he takes them to division contender status now. There's no reason not to compete to win that division. Last year you got off to this great start and you finish 8-8. You finish as a 500 team. And that was really disappointing. And now I just think that one player is never going to take you from a 500 team to a Super Bowl contender because that's where they're at. Like everybody wants to. I feel like everybody thinks the Cardinals are way better than they are. They're a 500 team, and they've been a 500 team for quite some time. Now, part of that being a 500 team right now in this stage of it is that they're still putting things together. But now, what is this? Year 3, Kyler now, right? This will be his 3rd season coming up, and I think now that he's got some reps behind him and he knows what he needs to do, it's just going to be a matter of if Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray and that offense can stay on the same page all year long and keep the defense fresh. Because I think too many times what happens with this Cardinal team is their offense just goes to sleep. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Oh, and then we're going to have a good possession. And so the defense gets really tired and it costs them games. And so I would hope that, you've got Chandler Jones on one side, you've got J.J. Watt now on the other side. Hopefully, the offense will get more opportunities because you would think that, again, to your point, what you were just saying, in that division, those guys really should be able to eat. And if you're Russell Wilson, this is just expediting your process to get out of the division. That's all this is doing because you don't want to play against those two guys twice a year, every single year.
Well, what I think is so fascinating is that the Cardinals have a history of signing big-name defensive talent. Mm-hmm. They go out and they get guys who can play on the defensive side of the football. I think we've seen that with Chandler Jones. I think now we're seeing it again with J.J. Watt. And if you go back, you can even look at guys like Emmitt Smith, mm-hmm. who came here, at the end of their careers. Is J.J. Watt at the end of his career? He's probably closer to it than he's not. The biggest question is, are you investing in another guy who can't stay on the field? This is a huge question mark for the Arizona Cardinals. You did it with Tyrann Mathieu and it blew up in your face. Mm-hmm. So I look at J.J. Watt. Okay, I had to. I look at J.J. He played 16 games 2 of the last 3 years. But last year he played 16 games and he had 5 sacks.
Do you think that when it comes to injuries, with where J.J. Watt's coming from in the Texans, do you think that guys are more willing to play through injury for an organization that values them? Because I think they are. Because you think about it, how many of those injuries? Because he's had some pretty serious injuries, but some of those injuries, how many of those has he drug out a little bit? Because he knows he's not I'm not going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not even going to the postseason this year. Am I really going to force my body to go through that if we're not even really going to play for the postseason?
I think heart matters on the defensive line. I mean, you can be lazy as a tight end. You cannot run every route at 100% if you're a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. On defense, you can't be lazy. Yeah. I mean, if you're lazy on the defensive line, you're going to be a 0. If you're lazy in the secondary, you're giving up touchdowns, mm-hmm. right? J.J. Watt is an effort player. But I would agree with you that he probably had a lack of want to at times last year. He played 16 games. I mean, the guy, the guy was an impact player last year. I'm just curious if he can stay healthy in Arizona. I mean, obviously the climate lends well to rehab, and inflammation tends to be less in Arizona in the desert. It's why everybody comes out during the offseason, has surgery. James Harden included is a guy that we know, rented homes, near. I should say we almost had him rent one of our houses in Greyhawk, but whatever. The point is, guys like that go to Arizona in the offseason to have surgery.
Right. Because
the climate is much more conducive to extending your career. J.J. Watt has a lot left in the tank. Yeah. I have no question about that. My biggest question is Kyler Murray, not J.J. Watt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did we see development out of Kyler Murray last year? I mean, I would like to think so, but when I really look at his numbers, I have some questions. I was deep diving into Kyler's numbers from last year. I mean, his completion percentage went up.
Right.
But it's still only 67%, and they're a 500 football team.
Well, 67% is pretty damn good.
Well, but it's not elite. And if you're going to win a Super Bowl, I think
Well, what was it, just 7 years ago that 60% was elite? Now right, people want 70%?
But look who won the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You have an elite passer who won the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I think if you look at both sides of the football,
yeah,
and if you look at who's really making a difference at quarterback in this league, why is Justin Herbert such a sensation?
Yeah.
Because he really throws the ball well.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray throws the ball well, but when you're his size and his stature,
yeah,
you're doing that outside the pocket a lot more. That's going to lend itself to against elite defenses, late in seasons, late in playoff runs. You're going to turn the ball over.
There's a lot of improv that goes on for Kyler Murray. There's no doubt about that. I think that is actually I feel like that was almost a selling point when the draft came around and it was his time to get taken. And I think that guys like Justin Herbert, what is he, 6'4"-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think. When you have that height and the ability to see over the line and kind of the ability to, read the defense and everything, and also Kyler Murray's constantly in the shotgun, literally, not even joking, because he can't see over the offensive line. So when you can't be under center a lot, when you're constantly in shotgun in this league, that it does limit you on some level, because if you look at Tom Brady, he's under center a lot. They run a lot of play action out of that set, and I think that the Cardinals don't do enough of that, and it puts Kyler in a position where teams know, okay, it's 3rd and 15, it's time to pass the football, right? It's time to contain Kyler Murray, it's time to keep him in the pocket, and that's why they struggle.
I look at the difference in Kyler Murray, and I just want to see a lot more Patrick Mahomes and a lot less of Kyler Murray from the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I think the difference is that Patrick Mahomes has a deep, deep understanding of what defenses are trying to do and where his guy will be based on what the defense is showing him. And I think that's the portion of the game that Kyler's still trying to catch up on.
Well, and I think you have to be between 4,500 and 5,000 yards passing.
Yeah.
And again, if you're not going to complete at a high percentage, your yardage had better be there, right? I mean, because this is a throw-first league. And I think if you're looking at the top quarterbacks in the NFL, whether that is a guy like a Russell Wilson, that's a guy that's throw first but runs because he wants to and can.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Tom Brady. He's throw first because he can't run, so he throws at a very elite level.
Right.
And he's got elite weapons to throw the football to. And their offensive line's pretty good, and he has an elite defense. Right? So this team in Arizona has spent a ton of money on defense. So I will ask again, how much more impactful would Kyler Murray be if Tristan Wirfs was at right tackle?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If they had invested...
That's simple. I mean, that's just straight. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the Arizona Cardinals and you look at their roster, their money is spent on defense. And I think until DeAndre Hopkins got here, you were overwhelmingly tilted defensively because you are paying what is Chandler Jones' $20 million?
But Chandler Jones isn't the problem. Chandler Jones is leading the league in sacks, dude. Like he's like paying him.
He and J.J. Watt.
I'm fine to pay a guy like Chandler Jones because he's performing for you. Hey, I'm giving you X money. You're giving me X result. Perfect. That's fine. I don't worry about that. But what I worry about is these other guys who you're paying, not 20 a year, but you're paying 4 and 5 a year.
You're paying DJ Humphries 20 a year.
Okay, perfect example.
You're paying Justin Pugh 12 a year.
And you know what's frustrating about those two guys specifically? More Humphries than Pugh, but both are kind of in this same light. Those guys can't stay healthy. Those guys are always hurt. There's always something happening. Yeah. They're always playing with a bum knee or whatever. And so you're paying them to sit on the sideline. And I think your point about that, bringing that up first in this J.J. Watt conversation, that should be the biggest concern if you're a Cardinal fan. What good is it that the guy came here and took a picture of him squatting in the squat rack in the weightlifting facility, and, oh, yeah, I'm a Cardinal, and I'm in the nest, and we're playing in State Farm Stadium, and everything's great, if his ass is sitting on the sideline in street clothes? What good is it?
Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, it really is. If you look at the guys that they're paying at the top of their cap, Chandler Jones, 1, defense. DJ Humphries, DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Phillips, 4th, defense.
Nobody knows who Jordan Phillips is.
And a defensive lineman.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, though, I'm just saying my point is that you're paying guys that nobody's ever heard of.
$12 million cap number.
Yeah.
You look at Jordan Hicks, $9.5 million cap number.
He makes a difference for you.
Robert Alford, $9 million cap number. Like Devin Kennard, Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons. You're paying the top of this defensive roster a ton of your money.
What are they paying Byron Murphy? Is Byron Murphy?
Well, he's still on his rookie deal. He's probably about $2 million worth of cap number. $949 cash, $2.1 million cap.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, look, I think, their cap isn't in a horrible situation, but they are paying a lot of guys who get hurt a lot. And I think that that's a recipe for, hey, we're going to get off to a hot start while everyone's healthy, and then we're going to be a 500 team.
Yeah, and finally, you don't have a ton of dead money, by the way, because that had been a problem for this team for a while. But, hey, listen, J.J. Watt is a nice upgrade on the interior line.
You got to say his name right.
I can't. My wife gets upset when I curse.
J.J. Watt.
J.J. Watt. Anyway, the point is...
And he will every single time.
Yeah, be quiet. Hey, shh. We don't raise our voices.
You're going to disturb the dogs.
This is a home of learned doctors. Just relax. Okay, can we finish up the show talking about this Nike scandal? I'm so upset about this. Okay, so you know that we are sneakerheads. You know that if you watch this show, there is a new sneaker on the wall pretty much sometimes every month or so, but we've been changing it a lot. We probably have, between the three of us...
Oh, my God.
What dollar figure would you put on our shoes?
10,000 at least.
Oh, come on.
At least.
I've got 10,000 on my own.
Yeah.
Easily.
Dude, I don't know then.
Probably 35,000.
Whatever you think is realistic. It's a lot.
Just in our personal collections.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You look at this scandal at Nike. They lost one of their top executives because her son was outed as a bot-using sneaker reseller. And it all came out because he started using his mom's credit card to buy his shoes. And he bought 1,100 pairs of this Jordan 5 that was released a couple of weeks ago. The Air Jordan 3 Cool Gray. He bought 2,700 pairs. And you have individual buyers who have no access to that shoe. And you start looking at his Jordan collection, they showed pictures of his warehouse. Oh, I said it, his warehouse. Because he was winning so many shoes. And by the way, not just Nikes, he was also buying Yeezys. But it was very clear. And what did you say when we talked about it this morning in our pre-show meeting? This is not a bot winning these auctions for him.
No, it's not a bot winning his auctions, no.
He clearly had to have some help.
This is not even a question, dude. A sneaker bot is not capable of winning that many shoes. A sneaker bot will win you 3-4 pairs if you have a good day. That's what a sneaker bot will win you.
I think when you're putting in 10,000 different accounts, and this is where I think he got help. The algorithm at Nike works in a very particular way to keep bots from winning. If you know how that algorithm works, and as a top executive at Nike, my guess is you would have access to that.
Yeah.
You can program your bots to beat that algorithm. And there is no question he used bots.
Yeah,
that's not a question.
Yeah.
If you put in 10,000 accounts into a bot, and for those of you who don't know what a bot is, it's a computer program that when there's a big sneaker release, that bot is going to attack the sneakers app with 10,000 logins. And just by percentage, because what happens is Nike's system is, hey, everybody who wants this shoe goes into a hat. And we're just going to pull names out of a hat. And those guys win the auction, right? So if you put in 10,000 entries, chances are you're going to win 1,000 pairs. If you put in 10,000 entries on a cool grade 3, it turns out you're going to win more than 1,000 pairs. So if you know how to do that, that makes a big difference. His mom resigned. She was not fired, but she resigned under pressure, apparently. We don't know it to be fact. We'll never know.
Yeah.
Convince me she didn't help him.
Yeah, you can't tell me she didn't help him. There's a reason. This guy isn't stupid. So when you're operating on that level, you're not stupid. And the idea that he started using his mom's card tells me that, like, to me, the only reason you would take that risk is because there was an advantage to it. So, like, you know what, like, to me, I guess my point is that the only reason he used her card is because by using her card, his percentages probably went up because the system knows it's her and that she's a Nike employee and that, you know, so that's what I'm saying. The whole thing is just convoluted, and I think that it doesn't surprise me. That's the world we live in. It, like, seeing this kind of a story where someone's totally taking advantage of the system doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's the kind of world we live in. It doesn't.
But he was winning $138,000 worth of shoes at a time.
Yeah.
Right? And he's a college dropout.
Yep.
Right? Joe Herbert drove to a warehouse he leases in Eugene, Oregon. You know, he was delivered 600 pairs of Yeezy Boost 350s. They sold out within hours, and they command $100 above list price.
Yeah.
He had 600 pairs of those.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell me he's not winning with bots.
The numbers are not in question. It's not this. The issue isn't the numbers. Like, it's cool he scaled his business up and everything. The issue is the fact that it's super unethical that his mom works at Nike and that he was using her card and that gave him an advantage. That's the issue.
The day these Yeezys were released, he woke up at 3 a.m., signed into a messaging platform called Discord, rousted 15 members of his cook group, a term sneaker resellers use to describe their allies in arbitrage. When the shoes went on sale an hour later, Herbert's team swarmed the Yeezy Supply website using specialized computer programs bots. He uses CyberSoul, Kodai, and GaneshBot, which were prepped with Herbert's credit card information and capable of gaming a system. By 6 a.m., the shoes were sold out. His bots had rung up $132,000 on his Amex card. His company, called West Coast Streetwear, resold the shoes in almost as little time. They cleared $20,000 in profit.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom is a top executive at Nike. That's a fucking problem.
Excellent strategy, sir.
That's a problem. Excellent strategy. Absolutely. Anyway, Nike's got a problem.
Everybody's got a problem, bro. Everyone's got a problem.
Yeah. The other shoe that he won a ton of was the Air Jordan 1 OG Dior collaboration.
Of course he did. Yeah.
Limited to 8,500 pairs.
Let me guess. He got at least 3,000.
Worth $10,000. He would not say how many pairs he had.
Mm-hmm.
It's infuriating.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop reading that article because it really pisses me off. It is.
I would expect better from Nike, but, you know, whatever.
It is absolutely infuriating. I love shoes, and I will keep buying Nikes.
Mm-hmm.
Nike's got to do something about this.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can. There's no way to stop bots 100%. But anyway.
The bot is not the issue, though.
I'm really upset
like, the
about
bot
it.
is not, like...
I'm really
I want
upset
people to understand
about it.
the bot is not the issue. The issue is that his mom worked at Nike, and that gave him an unfair advantage. That's the issue.
You're only upset because you didn't win the shoes. Well, that's part of it.
Well, yeah, of course.
That's part of it. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you are in. You know, I don't know. A lot of you were in on the Utah thing. I'm not even going to read half those comments.
Yeah.
Make sure you find us on YouTube. Is that it? Are we done today?
Yeah, I guess so, man. That's it, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, it's been an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm not saying we're selling anyone short. We're not the kid from Nike, but you know.
Oh, wow. Okay. Make sure you follow us on Instagram or Twitter so you can see me destroy my Vitamix blender last night. The Monty Show, Monty, The Monty Show. You can find Jake SLC Supercars on Instagram and Twitter. Until tomorrow, say Yeezy up,
I can't. That's not approved language.
Probably should.
Go win your sneakers, people.
There you go. See you tomorrow.